You know, as we age or as our loved ones age, there's often a lot of questions. There's a lot of mysteries up in the air as to what directions to take, what kind of care needs to be provided. And here to talk to us about their post-acute care from Chapters Health is Dr. Steward Stein. He is the medical director of the Chapters Health system. And also with us is Esylen Stevens. She is a social services specialist with Good Shepherd Hospice. Now, first of all, since you're both kind of from a different titles, tell us about how Good Shepherd Hospice kind of works with Chapters Health and the relationship there.
Of course. Good Shepherd Hospice is actually a subsidiary of Chapters Health Systems. Chapters Health Systems actually includes two hospices, one for Hillsborough County, which is LifePath, and then there's Good Shepherd Hospice, serving Polk, Highlands, and Hardy counties. But Chapters Health also includes other types of health care delivery, including a PACE system, which stands for Program of All-Inclusive Health for the Elderly, as well as a palliative care program. We have a staffing program, we have a nursing home diversion program, and we have a pharmacy.
Okay. Now, when we had been talking before, you had talked about Advance Directive. Tell us a little bit about what Advance Directive actually is.
Well, an Advance Directive, I think, is probably best described as a plan. It really is intended to help somebody to be able to get through those difficult decision-making times when they're no longer able to speak for themselves, either because of illness, injury, or lack of competency. There are several different types of advance directives, so I mean that term includes more than just a single document.
Well, what are these what are the different types of advance directives?
Okay, there's basically three types of advance directives. You have the durable power of attorney, you have the living will, and you have the designated healthcare surrogate. Now,
with the, what is the difference between, what is the power of attorney? How does that differ?
The durable power of attorney, that is a document where someone releases authority for someone else to make their decisions for them. But that form there it's a very powerful form because it gives someone, it can be very specific, and then it could be very broad. Okay. So it can include financial agreements. It can include someone can go into your bank account, into your bank statement. Someone can sign contracts for the individual. So it entails a lot. So it's recommended that an attorney is consulted for a power of attorney, durable power of attorney, just for that reason.
Now, of course, when we talk about these services, the power of attorney, the surrogate, the living will, these are all things that you recommend to do earlier on in life?
Yes, and they're best to do when you're healthy, because you get to the point when you're at your end stage condition or you have a terminal illness, then that's kind of difficult to make that decision at that time. Right. So when you're healthy, it's better, you have more time to decide who you want to make your decisions for you.
Now, from the power of attorney to the surrogate, how do those two differ? What is this, the healthcare surrogate?
A healthcare surrogate is somebody who you have chosen to make your medical decisions for you in the event of incapacity. Okay. There is a durable power of attorney for healthcare, which essentially does the same thing. It has nothing to do with finance or contract signing, bank accounts. Okay. So when you have given somebody the power to make your healthcare decisions, you have not turned over your bank accounts and so forth at the same time. So there are two different documents. Most commonly, I would say, people choose for their spouse or significant other to serve in both roles, but not necessarily. Oftentimes, people are comfortable in one role but not in the other. Particularly when it comes to medical decision making, oftentimes people would rather turn that over to somebody else.
Right. Now, how does that ever create any kind of conflict with the healthcare surrogate, where they make a healthcare decision, but then the power of attorneys, with the financial end of it, I mean, is there ever a conflict there where the health care can't be provided because the monies aren't there? Or, I mean, is that something that you run into often?
Normally, the healthcare surrogate and the durable power of attorney are separate entities, and the person that they designate normally are the same individuals.
Okay.
So a lot of times those problems do not arise. If they do, then it's so important that the individual who's signing over their decision making to someone else talk to the people within their family that's going to make the decisions for them.
Right.
So at that time, there's less conflict within the family, because when someone is at the end of stage condition, there's a lot of added stress already brought into the home.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned one other service or one other element to Advance Directive, and you know, we know that the power of attorney can be a little bit more inclusive, including the finances. The surrogate is somebody that you choose to make the healthcare decisions for you.
Exactly.
What is the living will? Let's talk about that for a minute.
The living will is a document that actually lays out in greater specificity exactly what you would or would not want done. And there are various versions of living wills. Some simply say, I would want to be resuscitated, or I would not wish to be resuscitated. Others might say, I could be placed on a ventilator for a period of time, after which I would want to be taken off of it regardless. I would or would not want artificial nutrition and hydration, or I would or would not want to go to the hospital, or maybe be transferred to the intensive care unit, or have dialysis or a blood transfusion. You can actually spell out all of these things in whatever detail you would choose. So the living will has the advantage of promoting that conversation, so that whoever it is whose responsibility it is now to act on your behalf has the benefit of knowing, of having had that discussion with you, exactly what you would like to have and what you wouldn't.
And that takes a lot of the anxiety out, I would imagine, for whoever is elected to be the healthcare surrogate. You had mentioned, you know, a lot of times people will feel comfortable in one role as opposed to the other, whereas a living will can take some of that uncomfortableness out of the whole situation.
Right, because there's some family members, if they're put in that role, you know, should I keep my loved one on life support? Is it really what they wanted to do? Then they may end up with guilt, anxiety, second guessing themselves. But if they have that in writing and they know exactly what the patient wanted and what their wishes were, then they're more relieved.
Right. And not only that, I mean, we've seen in the news in past years where, you know, instances of people making decisions as healthcare surrogates where there was no living will, and then other family members coming in and fighting that decision, and it can create a whole mess, whereas a living will can just clear out you know, all the air.
There's no document that does quite that good a job, but it certainly helps, yes.
How, you know, these three different areas of advance directives can be kind of confusing. You know, how do you recommend that somebody go about filling out these forms, or deciding, you know, who needs to do what family members should be involved? I mean, how do you go about recommending something like that?
I know when I go into the home as the social services specialist, I go over each form with the patient, if they have the capacity to go over the form, and kind of explain the form to them. And on the back of some of the forms, there's instructions exactly what the terms mean. So kind of go over it with them so they're clear what the terms mean, what exactly they're signing, and kind of get into the conversation with them. If I was not able to talk to you, who would you like me to talk with? And that gives them a good idea who they would want to place as their healthcare surrogate. And there's also an alternate healthcare surrogate they can write there on the form also, in case the main primary healthcare surrogate is no longer able to do that.
A surrogate has to be ready, willing, and able to step up to that role. And by ready, of course, we mean they have to know what you want. You have to have had that conversation. Willing goes without saying. You certainly wouldn't want to find yourself making somebody's medical decisions if that's not a role that you're really comfortable with. And able means reasonably likely to be present when the time comes. So choosing somebody who has been deployed to the Middle East, for example, is probably not a good choice if you've got a critical health issue. So
now, with the nature of an advance directive, it's really a pre-plan. You know, it's pre-planning. How many people actually go through this process? I mean, is this a very common thing? Is it something that people need to be more aware of, or, you know, I mean, what do you see with as far as how many people are actually using these tools of advance directive?
Well, from what I see, it's very low. A lot of people are familiar with advance directives. They may read about them, research about them, but then they may say, well, one day I'll get to it, and maybe never get to it. But the stats are really low. I believe the percentage is around maybe 29% of individuals actually have a living will. So it's very important to have one to relieve that stress from your family at that time.
of course, anytime somebody has a medical event, medical providers will attempt to have that conversation, but that's not an ideal situation. When you're under that type of stress, you tend to make less good decisions.
Exactly.
So
now, so with these forms, with this advance directive, you know, you had mentioned that you come in, you explain the forms, you try to make it as clear as possible and help guide people through it. Once they've determined what they want to do, how does that process get completed? I mean, do you need an attorney or something to notarize it? What?
No, for the living will, you do not need an attorney, but you do need 2 witnesses.
Okay.
And one witness cannot be a blood relative. So one witness cannot be a spouse or a cousin, sibling, and the other witness can be. So that can, as long as you have the 2 witnesses and you sign it, the patient signs it in front of those 2 witnesses, then it's valid. And the staff were not allowed to be a witness to those forms.
the witness can also not be a person who would be responsible for executing the financial arrangements for somebody's care.
Okay, so if they are the power of attorney listed in the advance directive, they cannot be a witness. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, what about some? I mean, you had said the living will. With does the surrogate or the power of attorney, do they require a notarized? You know.
The only one that requires a notary is a durable power of attorney, because of specifications that's within there. Could be so broad or specific. You know, you can go into the finances, you can sign contracts, because that entails those things. Those are the ones that need a notary.
Can somebody go in and change their advance directives once they've already filled it out, and then maybe, you know, situations change, family, maybe one of the folks that you have being your healthcare surrogate passes away or something, you know, like that. Can they go in and change that then?
They can be, and we recommend actually that they should be reviewed from time to time, because our health situations change. I recently reviewed my own and realized I had people named in succession. Now, one of them wasn't even alive anymore, so really not a good decision maker. So we do need to every once in a while look over them, update them, and see what's appropriate. If you execute the documents when you're in perfect health and then you're diagnosed with a life-limiting illness, your views are going to change.
Right.
Yes.
And let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, obviously, this is something, you know, when you start talking about living will and power of attorney and healthcare, these are all things that get really real. I mean, they get real when you become sick or when you start to age. But this stuff isn't just for the elderly, is it? No,
it's not. It can be for the young. As a matter of fact, there's so many young adults that are in car wrecks. You know, anytime you can be in an accident anytime throughout your lifetime. So it's not specifically for the elderly. So it's recommended that, you know, 18 years and older have advance directives.
Very good. I mean, when you really think about it, you're talking about planning, and this is not necessarily for you as much as it is for your loved ones.
Right.
And taking the load off of their decision-making process, and taking the load off of, you know, the healthcare decisions that need to be made. So, and like you said, I mean, things can change in a heartbeat. And you never know when that might happen.
That's very true. And in addition, what you've done is you've taken you've helped them in the recovery phase. If somebody has a terminal illness and you've said, I want this, this, and this, but after that I want you to stop, the person who made that decision now doesn't have to sit and wonder, did I do enough? Did I do too much?
Right.
Did I make the wrong decision? I mean, you've helped the living, so it's a good thing.
We had mentioned, about changing your advance directive because maybe situations might change during your life. What about like if you were to move to another state or something like that? Are the advance directives that you've created in Florida, I mean, do they pass on? Are they recognized throughout the entire country?
Yes, they are. As long as they follow the statutes within that state, they are recognized within that state.
How does a person's religious beliefs fit into advance directives? I mean, is that something that people consider, how they want to be taken care of after they pass away or whatever it might be?
It really, sometimes advance directives may conflict with religious beliefs. So what we recommend is that the patient talk with their clergy, rabbi, priest, whatever, whoever religious figure they need to talk to. We recommend that they discuss it with them, and then they become more comfortable if they're willing to sign it or not.
Now, Chapters Health obviously has been doing this for quite a while, and such a large organization. You have all the resources that are necessary for these advance directives. How does somebody get in touch with you to get a hold of these forms, or to get somebody in to explain some of this stuff to them on a one-on-one kind of basis? And
that is the job as a social services specialist, because we work as a team. So when the primary care nurse goes in to visit the patient and they recommend advance directives, they start talking about their advance directives, then they call and refer to social services specialists. And that's when we go in with the forms and explain the forms to them.
Even somebody not in our system is certainly welcome to access our website, which is www.chapters.org/library, and they can actually take a look at these forms. We're actually doing some work with a new form as well called the POLST, P-O-L-S-T, which stands for Physician Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. And many states have adopted this on a statewide level. We're just rolling that out in the chapter system now. And the document typically includes line-by-line items such as hemodialysis, antibiotics, intensive care, ventilators, all of those types of things. So it's a field that's evolving. I think we're going to see this probably become standard throughout the country. And I think it's just a matter of time.
Well, this has been great. I think a lot of people are going to kind of have their eyes opened and realize that advance directives are something that's for everybody at every stage of life. Not just those who are aging or ill, but those who are in good health. It's the best time to make a decision.
Exactly.
Guys, Esylen, thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Stein, it's been an absolute pleasure. We hope to see you guys back on soon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's Chapters Health. What a great opportunity that you have to look out for your loved ones in the event that you become ill or as you start to age. It's important that you don't wait until an event comes, but that you pre-plan and make sure that you get these advance directives in place so that your loved ones can have can spend those last days, those years, and enjoy them with you rather than being stressed out about the decisions that they have to make. To find out more information about getting these advance directive forms and getting them filled out and getting your loved ones taken care of, you can contact Chapters Health. Like Dr. Stein had said, you can find them on the web at chaptershealth.org.